Opening day is this week. St. Louis Cardinals baseball is almost back. And that means today we've gotten official news on what the Cardinals opening day roster will look like. I think some of us were pleasantly surprised by some of the decisions that the Cardinals made. Some of the decisions still felt very Cardinals in how they confuse us. Sandy and I are going to break down our thoughts on the roster decisions from this weekend and then also kind of preview kind of what we're expecting from opening day this year on this episode of Deal on the Cards. Sandy, I know you're not doing very well, man. This is a St. Louis Cardinals podcast. If you're the first time in on Deal on the Cards, but we go live multiple times a week over here to talk about Cardinal baseball. Usually it's myself, Sandy, and Andrew. Sometimes we've got special guests on as well. And we are so excited to bring you more Cardinals content all season long. We'll tell you more about some of our sponsors here in a little bit, like a presenting sponsor through Enforce Sports Cards and Collectibles, or Underdog Sports, where you can talk about the March Madness and do some hires and lowers. And Sandy, I'll give you 30 seconds to mourn Baylor basketball real quick, and then we're going to move on to some Cardinal content.
I know nobody cares, but it just hurt. I'm mourning the end of VJ Edgecombe's college career, an athletic stud.
That is.
He'll be a top 5 selection in the draft, and I'm probably going to buy a jersey. I'm mourning the end of Norchet Omir's career, second place all-time in college double-doubles, 4 great years at Miami, a great year with Baylor University. Very sad to see him go. I'm happy to see Jeremy Roach moving on. Waste of NIL money, unfortunately. And that's it. Devastating. Very sad. Sports hate me. And I'm about to watch 162 games of Cardinal baseball starting this week, and I'm ready to do it again. Why am I here? Let's go. Let's roll.
Oh my gosh. A couple of Cobb just says the opening line of sounds of silence is probably running through your head. We've got an L Baylor, a couple L Baylors in here.
Man. Oh, 5 months until we watch Sawyer Robertson play football, so that's good. Baylor football's back in August against Auburn. We're going to get an early season win. So
hey, well, we are only a few days from opening day in St. Louis. I'm going to run through quickly the list of roster decisions that we have gotten confirmed for us today, which is all of them, but like kind of give the official news in case someone didn't catch it or just needs a reminder. And then Sandy, I'll let you pick which one of these we run with first, because we can go in a multitude of directions. But first, we got confirmation that Victor Scott II is going to be the opening identity center fielder, which is super exciting for Victor. Congratulations. Michael Siani still made the opening day roster, and that meant the Cardinals had to go tell Jose Fermin that they had already told he would make the opening day roster, that now he will not be on the opening day roster. So we can react to that whole situation. Matthew Liberatore is actually going to be the Cardinals' 5th starter, not even the 6th starter. He is the 5th starter, with Steven Matz going to the bullpen to start the year. I think April 13th, if I'm not mistaken, is the day they will move to a 6-man rotation. Basically, they have 3 off days in the first week or so of the season, or week and a half, 2 weeks of the season. And then they'll have 18 games with 1 day off or something like that. So they'll do a 6-man rotation then, and that Matz will get some starts in there. And then the other which that means Michael McGreevy is going to start the year in Memphis AAA. And then the other thing is, because the Cardinals are not carrying a backup shortstop, of course, Brendan Donovan is like the emergency shortstop, but the Cardinals are really hitching their bandwagons to Mason Wynn playing every single day.
162,
even
maybe. Come on.
With the back injuries last year, even with a wrist that's not really great right now. And it seems like they're pot committed to him as the leadoff hitter right now. So there's 5 different directions, maybe 6 different directions you can go. Sandy, what's the first thing you want to talk about?
Let's talk about the infield.
Okay.
I think this is the craziest thing ever. It's really funny because we broke down, and we had a little bit of diversity in the directions we went. If you didn't see our last episode, we kind of predicted how it would go. None of us were right. Cardinals found some way that none of us thought of. And it's so funny because this wasn't even one of the maybe scenarios we tossed out.
Nope.
I mean, the Cardinals went their own way. But I do think we got to talk about this infield.
To be fair, they did say before we recorded that Fermin was making the roster.
Yeah.
So we were under that impression.
That is crazy. We all had him on our benches, but here, if you go to MLB.com's just roster, because the Cardinals have finalized their roster, so it's out there. The 26 guys are on there. Only 4 players are listed under the infielders tab. Now, I know that's not including Contreras, who MLB is still listing as a catcher. We know he's going to be playing first this year. It's not including Donovan, who's probably going to factor into the infield mix, but that's not a lot of depth. And it's including Luke and Baker, who's a lefty-only DH. It's oh man, this is kind of crazy. There's just no depth here. So I think we should talk about that first. What led them to select this small group of guys, and how is there no Jose Fermin or nobody capable of playing backup shortstop besides Donovan?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing it does tell us for sure is that, like, I mean, again, if an injury happens or a guy's probably gonna be out for 4, 5, 6, 7 days, like they can make a roster move. They can send down Siani for a few days, or I guess they have to wait a little bit longer than that and bring up for me as a JC, something like that. What it really tells us is they truly want Nolan Gorman, Brendan Donovan, Nolan Arenado, Wilson Contreras, and Mason Wynn to play basically every day, and that. Like, so Gorm's probably the everyday second baseman, and Donovan is like the placeholder DH, but you're gonna see him at third some days, or you might see him at second with Gorm at third is probably more likely. Then you'll see him at second on days when Gorm's DHing. You might see him in the outfield some, but the fact that Siani's on the roster, I don't know how much Nootbaar is going to play center field. So I don't really know if we get much of outfield Brendan Donovan to start the year, but we'll see. Obviously, injuries can play a role in some of this. I do think we will at least see some Donovan in the outfield, because outside of Siani, you don't really have another outfielder because they don't want to play Alec Burleson out there. So that's probably the weirdest part to me, is you have two guys on your bench that only can DH or play first base. You have another guy who's only a catcher, and then you have another guy who you're only going to play in center field. So you don't have anyone not in your best 9 players that can play second base, third base, or shortstop. And none of them you'd really play in the corner outfield either. So it is kind of weird. But that's kind of where I see that. I am slightly concerned about the idea of Mason Wynn playing literally every day. I'm more so concerned about him being the leadoff hitter, because he's not really shown enough to warrant being that guy this year. I mean, camp's been bad, and you know me, like I've talked about all spring. Like, I'm not a big spring training stats guy, but I mean, he just hasn't looked. I mean, his OPS is lower than Michael Siani's now. We've been trashing Michael Siani for a month, and then the other side of it too is like he was a slightly above league average hitter last year. Brendan Donovan and Lars Nootbaar are much better leadoff options. This lineup actually becomes, well, I guess with Victor Scott playing every day, it's a little bit interesting, but it's a lot more lengthened when you can put, in my opinion, Mason Wynn the 8-9 spot along with Victor Scott at the bottom of the order rather than Win at the leadoff spot. So I don't love that. But yeah, that's more my take. I think it's just what it really confirms for us here is that they're really pot committed to this. If Jose Fermin was on the roster, it's not like he'd play that much anyways. But it also tells us that we were right originally, that the Cardinals don't want to play him at shortstop. Like, I don't think they feel comfortable with that. So do you have concerns about Wynn playing every day, like whether it's from a production standpoint and / or just like, I mean, he had those back issues last year. It seems like the wrist is a thing right now.
Yeah, I mean, the Cardinals obviously want Mason Wynn to be the guy that's going to be a leadoff hitter and a shortstop and play 162 games. And we all want that for him, you know. I do have production concerns, though. You're absolutely right. First off, I think that they're not maximizing their lineup potential. We talked about this last time. It's obvious to me that either Nootbaar or Donovan would be better in the leadoff spot. And I do like the idea of having Nootbaar hit a little farther down and have him maybe tap into some of that power, get a bit more aggressive. But like, I'd much rather have Donovan at the top of the lineup. That's just me, though. The Cardinals obviously don't agree. I do wonder how long the Wynn leadoff experiment goes. I could see a world where the Cardinals 3 weeks into the season are like, hey, you know, we're going to move you down. Your production, the 8-hole last year was elite. It was. He was great. I mean, granted, a much smaller sample size. But because of how good that production was, actually, it obscured the fact that in the leadoff spot, he was a below average hitter. So, you know, when we say he's a slightly above league average hitter, that's the whole season put together. So I think that needs to be noted as well. Yeah, there obviously are concerns. It's really tough because it feels like the Cardinals have had a lot of like big prospects that they seem to get really excited about. And right when they get excited about them and you see all the branding come out, it's like, ooh, things go sideways. I hope that's not the case with Wynn. It's hard to believe that it's suddenly going to change. But I don't know. That's not really like a baseball sense. That's just me like intuiting how this situation could end. But
you and I talked
out there. So
you and I talked about this recently, where you made a good point. You made a good point that this felt like a marketing thing to have Mason.
That's a Kareem point.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Point.
But you reiterated it though.
Yeah.
And then and there is a part of me that thinks like, okay, I can see a world where Ollie's like, hey, the future of this team is better long term if Mason Wynn can figure it out as a leadoff hitter, and so we're gonna help him build his confidence and put him in these situations. And we've been clamoring, hey, Cardinals, build toward the future. And so, like, if that was the true meaning behind it, I could see it. And I kind of get it. But even then, I think I'd still rather have Donovan lead off. Yes. Like, he's my number one because, to your point, like, I think if you want, like, the strongest lineup, in my opinion, is when you could do Donovan, Contreras, Nootbaar. I don't know if Arenado's going to be your cleanup hitter all year, but he's going to start as that. Yeah. And then you figure it out from there, whether it's like Pereira next. Yeah, Baker against lefties. If they do play Donovan in left field.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, and honestly, he could be a leadoff guy. He led the team, and I think he was first or second in both average and OBP last year.
So good.
So good. I'd probably more so have him toward like the 5-6 spot to begin the year, but then make adjustments as it goes through. And again, I'm not like, hey, Donnie like is sold as like the everyday leadoff hitter all year, because obviously he hasn't had a strong camp. And like Nootbaar for his career has better leadoff numbers. So like, okay, I could see an argument for that, but I think I'd rather, to your point, see if Nootbaar can maximize on his power potential a little bit more, run driving ability. But Donovan's also a guy who can drive in runs. He doesn't do it in like the flashy slugger type way. So that was interesting. But I mean, since we're on the position player side of things, let's stick over here. So Victor Scott is the center fielder, which is a surprise. Well, I don't know if it's a surprise at this point, but I don't think any of us would have been shocked if all the podcasts they were led with how on earth did Victor Scott not make the opening day roster. Saying this as the guy who all spring has kind of been like, hey, I'm fine with Victor Scott starting in Memphis, not because I want Michael Siani as the starting center fielder, but because I could see the argument for Lars Nootbaar doing that. You get Burleson at bats early, and whenever you're like, hey, VS2 is clearly ready, then you play him. But I mean, he's had a super strong camp, and so who am I? Like at this point, it's like, well, go for it, I guess, right? Like he was better at the end of the year. He made some adjustments and changes, so it's not like it's not like you're coming off of last year where he was just so bad in April, and then he was terrible in AAA, and that's all you saw of him. You did see the improvements and changes, and then he carried them over into spring. And so if the Cardinals think he's ready, then I'm good with it as long as they play him every day. With Michael Siani on the roster, I'm not really sure what's going to happen with that. So we can talk about what his role is. But when you saw Victor Scott was named the center fielder, what were your thoughts?
I was a little surprised for sure. I mean, I don't think I was shocked because even though I thought it was the right call to go with Lars Nootbaar, yeah, that's true. Even though I thought it was the right call to go with Lars Nootbaar, and I know you agree with me, and I think Andrew agreed. It's just like I didn't think the Cardinals were going to go that direction. You know, I saw this coming, I guess, but I did think it would be Siani if it wasn't going to be Nootbaar.
Yeah.
So I'm a little surprised. I think it's like, look, if you bring up Victor Scott and he's not ready to go again, like it's going to make it really hard to believe in him from a developmental standpoint moving forward. Because like, you know, I mean, an organization can give a guy as many chances as you want, but like, at least from a fan perspective, after 2, maybe like 3 call-ups, it's like, okay, you know, is it going to work out? I think that's the way people feel about Gorman. I think it's definitely the way people feel about Walker entering this year. You know, we're starting to get a little suspicious. So that's kind of tough. Like, kind of running out of some leash really early when I think maybe some development would have been good for him. The other thing is this better work, you know, like if this doesn't work, the team's going to be terrible potentially, because if he's what he was last April offensively, that's worse than Siani was last year. I'm not saying he's that guy. I think he's better. He's had a really good spring. He had a nice end of the season. You could tell he was making improvements in AAA. I know Kareem is pretty bullish on Scott. So like there are good indicators, but it's got to work. And if it doesn't, like, it's going to be really tough. Also, it's just like every once in a while, the Cardinals throw a guy on the roster and they put him in and it's like, man, this guy's just trying to tread water. Like he's not ready. And that's how it felt with Scott last April. I really hope it doesn't feel that way again this April. It was just brutal. It was hard to watch. It was like that at times. Like, and they're not the same player at all. But like, you remember when the Cardinals brought up Scott Hurst and it's like, what is this guy doing here? Victor Scott is not Scott Hurst. Victor Scott has a ton of talent. Victor Scott has a high floor as a player. He's got great tools, but it's just like, man, I wasn't sure he was ready. Yohan Oviedo, another talented player who wasn't ready for the situation the Cardinals put him in.
I feel like the Yohan Oviedo is a great comp for how last year was handled. Yes. And then this year, my fear is that it's 2024 Jordan Walker.
Absolutely.
Where you realize 2023 was a mistake and it hurt his development.
You do it
and
again.
then 2024, and so I don't think any of us were at the time saying he shouldn't make the opening day roster. So I'm not saying that. My fear is what happens though is at the end of April comes around and Scott's sent back down to Memphis again. And then it's like, wait, what does that do for his confidence? What does that do for his long-term development? I'm not saying that will happen. I'm definitely not. And I'm rooting for him and I'm hoping for the best. And again, he's looked good in camp. So I'm not here to say it's not going to work. My fear is that you don't have to force the issue with it. And so I don't think the thing that encourages me is they clearly were trying to find every possible way for Michael Siani to win this job. And first, he was so bad that it was like hard to like make an argument that he could. And Scott was so good that it was hard to not have him be the center fielder. So that's encouraging to me that it's not like last year where Scott started strong, but then it kind of faded off in camp. And then Carlson went down, Newbar went down, and they had to go to him, which they didn't have to. They could have went Siani, but they went to him. This feels different. It feels like he earned it. And not that he didn't necessarily earn it last year, but I would be shocked if he's as bad as he was last year.
Yeah, I don't think he will be. I think he's better.
I just think like sometimes, like I've seen this argument sometimes where it's like, hey, how, like if the Cardinals want runway, why don't they play all of the young guys? I've been a constant complainer about the rotation side of it, but that's because I think there's more guys who are clearly ready, in my opinion, who are like these guys, like Michael McGreevy, who we're going to talk about, is in Memphis, and it's clearly is a big league starter right now. That's crazy to me. Well, we'll get to it. It's fine for now, but in the big picture, it's crazy.
I'm angry.
But the Scott side of it, it's like, anyways, we can beat the horse dead all the time, but I'm excited for him. I feel like I'm talking too pessimistic about it right now. I'm excited for it, and I'm rooting for him, and I'm so hopeful for him, and I'm hopeful for a huge April. I really hope they're right. That's my big thing, is that if they're going to make this decision, they have to be right about it. And I think we all can agree on that. So, let's maybe move, or I guess the other thing is, so I guess this is kind of a little side tangent. We already talked about the bench a little bit, but actually two things. One, how do you think they're going to use Michael Siani? Because I have a thought about it. Two, do you think it was bogus to do that to Jose Fermin, or is that just part of the game?
I mean, yeah, it's kind of part of the game. Like, you get new information, you make new decisions. I think it's stupid to promise him a spot on the roster at all. I think that's where they went wrong. It's like, that's probably not dealing, like, I don't know, if you're like rushing a fraternity, right? You're not supposed to bid promise to somebody. That's like a rule. You don't do that. That's what the Cardinals just did. They like bid promise to Michael Siani, and that's not what you're supposed to do. You're not allowed to do that. That violates the rules for a reason. You're not supposed to tell someone you've got this spot before it's official. That's dumb. If you're recruiting someone for a job, you don't tell them you get the job before you go through all the applicants. Like, that's stupid. That's just dumb from the Cardinals front office. It's just bad PR too, because of course it got out. Of course fans know about it. And of course it's in the Twitterverse. Like, it just makes us look bad. It's kind of embarrassing. I think it's poor communication. But at the end of the day, like, that's baseball at the same time, you know? Like, if the Cardinals believe this is the best baseball decision, they probably should do that. So whatever they want to do. I don't like the idea of like telling a player, hey, you got a spot on the roster, and then not having him on the roster. I think that kind of sucks. They should have told him in the first place, or just not say anything to him. Like, they only had to wait, like, what, 4 days, 5 days? Like, why are you talking to this guy? What are you doing? I wonder who told him too. That's the other thing. Was it some intern or was it like, whatever?
Well, Ollie said that thing where he's like, I can't confirm the roster because I need to have one more conversation. And now it feels like the conversation I was anticipating, I had to go tell Victor Scott he's not making the roster, even though he played really well. Instead, he had to go tell Jose Fermin, actually, sorry, bro, you're not making the roster. Crazy. That's crazy.
At least
to
he
me.
Found out, like, at least it wasn't I thought I was making the roster, and I found out on Twitter. A little better.
Yeah.
Like, I never understand how these big organizations bungle like basic communication. Yeah. You've got so many people that are paid to figure out how to make this look good.
Yeah. See, I'm not upset that for me he's not making the roster per se. It's more so like, guys, come on. Like, for all the communication issues you continue to have, like, this is an easy one where this is a self-inflicted wound. I hope it doesn't hurt. I mean, hope there doesn't hurt their relationship with Fermin too much, but the bigger thing is I hope it doesn't like breed distrust with other players about that. So I guess that's kind of where I go a little bit. Also, if you're watching now, it's a fun turnout so far. We love in the chat, so feel free to keep the comments flowing. We'll keep trying to keep up with those. Like the stream helps us out a ton, and we really appreciate it. Comment your thoughts as we go through, and subscribe if this is your first time. or if you've just been returning back and you want to keep up with our content throughout the season, we've got a giveaway coming up here soon. Actually one, maybe two big ones. I want to run a second one by you guys. I have a potential giveaway. But then the first one is already confirmed. You know what I'm talking about, and we'll announce that here soon. So stay tuned for the giveaways. I'll show you. I've got two memes that I want to show today on the stream as well. And I don't think a couple of our sponsors, but in relation to Siani, I earlier this morning I was preaching at my church, and then get home, and Andrew apparently jumped on the live stream, and he made this meme. Oh my gosh, why is Michael Siani on the opening day roster? Yeah, I got that text, and I was just like, what the heck? So that gave me so much joy. Okay, so real quick thoughts on on Michael Siani. I do think he'll play some center field. My hope is that when Scott is not starting, Nootbaar's in center, because it's not like it'll be twice a week at most. And then that's a way to get Burley in the lineup, because you can move Donnie to left field, Burleson DH. If you don't do that, I'm really confused how Burleson gets at bats. So my hope is I'm hopeful that there was a little bit of a handshake agreement between Mo and Ollie, that Mo's like, Ollie, you can have your stinking guy Sanisi, that I can't even remember his name, but you get him as a defensive substitute. And so this dude can play for you in a pinch, but he's the Jordan Walker replacement late in the game. It's a weird use of the roster spot, in my opinion. I'd love to see Michael Koperniak get a chance, or Jose Fermin. But if Siani's on the roster just to come in for defense later in the game, whatever, it's fine.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I mean, he's a great defender, and like it is going to help you lock down leads. If you think the bullpen is going to be as good as it was last year, which I'm not sure it's quite as good, but it could be really good again. This could be another top 10 unit. If the bullpen is that good and it's locking people down, yeah, you can't be giving away games because the guy in right field doesn't make the play he needs to make. And so if you can slide Siani into, because if Siani can play Gold Glove center, he's going to be generational in a corner.
Well, I'm curious to see how they actually handle it. My guess actually is they move Scott to right in those games, and Siani goes to center.
I would think so too.
I'd be pretty surprised if they put Siani in right, but you never know.
Scott in right will also be great. He just covers. They both cover so much ground. The other question for me is, does this mean Burleson factors into the corner outfield at some point? I hope not. I don't think he should play in the outfield. You've already got enough defensively limited outfielders, but if you want to get him at bats, that makes sense to me. I just don't like it.
Yeah. I don't know how they do it, because they literally didn't even try. They didn't do it all in spring training. They had every opportunity to.
We didn't see if he was like doing it on a backfield or something at some point.
Yeah, that's true. It just would surprise me that they didn't do it in a game at all, and now they're going to play it on every once in a while. But you never know. I mean, Tommy Edman didn't play any center field. I mean, it's different though. He's a good defender, but
maybe the thought is like he's done it before.
Yeah,
and it's like, I mean, I think the thing with a Burleson in the outfield is it's like he doesn't make the routes are fine, he just like doesn't cover the ground fast enough. They're not great, but they're not, it's not like, how much better does it get? I think is my question. If you're like, doing it in spring training, it's like, how much more is it going to change? So maybe they had other guys they wanted to give looks, but they're still like, well, if he's in there once a week to get an extra start, I just don't think Burleson, the bat's fine. I'm not sure it's so good that you need to be forcing other people out of the lineup, forcing Burley into the field to get him at bats. Like, it's whatever to me.
Yeah. Unless you did which again is what I hope they'll do, is Nootbaar in center a couple times a week, give Victor a rest day, and then you can get Burleson a DH, Donovan a left field, or you can DH Wilson that day and then put Burley in at first base. Because again, the DH is not just going to be one of these starting like Donovan or Burleson or Gorman. It's like Arnaud's going to get split time there. Contreras is going to get time there. Herrera's going to get time there. Some of these days when there's Herrera and Pages in the lineup, which complicates things. So there's a lot to kind of think about when it comes to roster construction, even beyond just the Mason Wynn leading off we've talked about at the top. But before we continue on, I want to thank a couple of sponsors of the Deal in the Cards podcast. The first is 314 Sports Cards and Collectibles, which are located at 9640 All Boulevard in Olivet. They're open 10 to 5 Monday through Friday, and 10 to 4 on Saturdays and Sundays. They buy, sell, and trade all sports cards and Pokemon cards, and they have the newest selections of packs, boxes, and single cards of local players and stars from around the league. You got to go check them out. We know many of you do already. I saw one of our followers the other day just pulled like a super cool auto card from one of the box sets that they did. So yeah, definitely go check them out. 314 is awesome. We just love partnering with them. And then we also want to tell you about one of our other partners, Underdog Sports. The Deal in the Cards podcast is proud to be partnered with Underdog Sports. our favorite place to play fantasy games. You're now eligible to play in Illinois, Missouri, Indiana, and 37 other U.S. states. You got to check out Pick'em. It's so easy to play. You just pick 2 to 8 stats of your favorite players and choose whether they'll go higher or lower. You can win 20 times your money by going 5 for 5. If that sounds like fun, sign up with our promo code CARDS to claim your first free pick plus first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. We can't wait to see your entries. Thanks again to Underdog Sports. Sandy, you've been cooking with some over-unders. So
Absolutely.
I don't know if you want to share some.
Always love me a couple higher and lowers on Underdog. The NCAA tournament makes it so much fun. I just love putting a couple bucks down, makes a game where I have no rooting interest a little bit more fun to watch. Today for the Baylor Duke game, I might have lost fan wise, but I cleaned up, had this one with four over-unders here. Okay. Very nice. And then I had another one for 2. I had a little discount token, which they've got as a promo for March Madness if you're looking at that. So if you put down 3, you end up getting a freebie. So I was able to adjust Cooper Flagg's line to 0 points. Obviously, that's guaranteed. Had the Norchad O'Meara over 12.5 points. A little win there. So, keep you going a little bit.
There you go. Yeah, use our promo code CARDS. You can click the link in the description of the YouTube video to download Underdog, or you can go check them out other ways. Again, baseball season starting here soon. NBA, you can also do that as well. So use promo code CARDS and we'll play on some Underdog Sports.
Yes, sir.
Okay, the pitching side of things. Matthew Liberatore is the 5th starter. Color me shocked. I didn't think they'd actually do it. That's like, I kept saying, so I know when we did a roster prediction, I predicted McGreevy making the 6th man. And admittedly, I said it was a little bit more wishful thinking than it was like what I actually think is going to happen. I was hopeful, projecting some hope into it. What I was like, hey, could happen, but probably not going to happen, is that they do the 6th man and Libby gets some starts out of it now. But they totally shocked me. They're putting Libby in the 5-man group and they're making Matz the 6th guy when the 6-man rotation comes around. Whoa. Did you see that coming?
Absolutely not. I'm really surprised. Color me shocked. I just my question is, what does Michael McGreevy have to do to make the roster? We don't have to break down the Michael McGreevy angle yet. We can get to that. Obviously, as a McGreevy truther from day one, I'm very upset. But as a Libby truther as well, I'm happy. I love Matthew Liberatore. He's an electric arm. We've seen when Libby is at his very, very best, he has the potential to be an elite pitcher. He has a higher ceiling than McGreevy. I'm not even going to argue that point. It's true. He's coming from the left side. He's got the ability to touch 97, 98. I don't know if he's going to be able to maintain that velocity. The few starts where he's looked dominant. If you look a few years ago, that start in Tampa Bay, it was unbelievable. I believe he went either 7 or 8 scoreless innings against Tampa Bay. It was like, oh my gosh, it's coming together, striking everybody out, tons of whiffs. It was awesome. He was maintaining that velocity late into that game. And it was a continuation of what we saw of him at AAA that year too, where he went on a 6-week run of just pure dominance at AAA. And it was like, wow, he's ready. Let's do this thing. Because the Libby hate started early from Cardinals fans because of the Arozarena trade. I don't think he ever got a fair shake from a lot of people. They were just assuming he was a bust. And I don't know. I definitely don't think he's a bust. He's reinvented himself nicely as this setup reliever. What I don't understand is why do the Cardinals think that they can just continue to switch things up on him? This cannot be good for him to again be oh, you're a reliever. Oh, you're a starter. I'm not sure he had the real opportunity to stretch out this winter too, because the Cardinals weren't clear with him on it. So that's what I really don't understand.
Well, they did tell him he could come into camp as a starter. So I do think he's stretched out right now. It's different because it's not
the way he would have been if he knew you are a starter this year. How does the offseason look different still?
I think he prepared in the offseason. I just don't think camp went fully like that, where he wasn't he only got 1 start.
That's what
I don't think his offseason routine, which again, it's not perfect, but I think it's better than what's gone on before. This isn't the same thing of they put him in the bullpen for 2 months and then they told him to start making some starts. Yeah. So here's one reason why I think it makes sense that Libby just made the rotation over McGreevy is that the Libby experience, let's say he gets rocked in 3 starts and they're like, okay, we're not doing this again. It's easier to pull him away from the rotation and put him in the bullpen and then move Matz into the rotation or call it McGreevy at that point than it would be to start with McGreevy and then try to figure out how to get Libby into the rotation. You've also got a couple of other factors we had to keep into account now. Andre Palante has not looked sharp in camp at all.
I know.
And I do think there's a chance that I don't think it's going to happen, but there's a world where April goes pretty poorly for him, and the Cardinals are like, yeah, we'd actually rather go with McGreevy over you right now, Palante. Like, Palante's earned the chance to be in the rotation right now.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's like can't touch him. That if it's bad,
leeway for you than like a Michaelis though. Like obviously for you, but for the Cardinals.
Well, I mean, if Palante's getting beat up, I don't really think it matters at that point. And again, for his development too, like Michael's getting beat up at the major league level. It's like whatever, who cares? But like Palante, if you need to go figure some stuff out, you can go figure some stuff out. You've also got the Sonny Gray dynamic right now of I wouldn't be surprised this guy's hit the IL at some point. And so that's where McGreevy could come back up, because the Cardinals sound committed to the 6-man rotation for the middle to end of April. I don't think it's just to get Libby in the rotation. It sounds like they want to take some stress off some of their starters, and I think what they're hoping for is that Sonny Gray is positively impacted by that, maybe an Andre Palante, guys like that. But you have the ability now to go down to Memphis and grab McGreevy whenever you want, or Quinn Matthews at some point. Again, to your point, I would much rather the Cardinals have surprised us and DFA'd Miles Michaelis today, and voila, you got Michael McGreevy in the rotation. Wasn't going to happen. And so I'm actually encouraged that they're at least giving Libby a chance. You mentioned Libby in Tampa, and that's like the high-end side of things.
That's awesome.
I mean, we also got to remember, who was it that drafted Matthew Liberatore while he was with Tampa Bay? It's Chaim Bloom. I remember, I think I told you guys a story before that. I think early last offseason or something like that. Or no, it was before the offseason, because Bloom talked at the end of the press conference. But like, so it was like middle of the summer. I was like, I don't think I've ever heard Chaim Bloom's voice before. And I was like, I'm pretty confident this guy's going to take over the Cardinals. So I was like, let me just look up some interviews and I've read stuff from him, but hadn't listened to his voice before. And the very first interview I listened to was him raving about first-round pick Matthew Liberatore and how they targeted him in the draft and were super excited for his upside. Now, again, you're going to say that about your first-round pick, and he definitely could have changed his opinion over time. But it really wouldn't surprise me if he wants to see what they've got in him. And again, if April goes poorly, it's not like Matthew Liberatore. It's not like it's pretty easy to move Libby back into the bullpen and get him back to pitching the way he was out of the bullpen. Way more difficult to do the reverse. So that's where I'm okay with that side of it. I'm going to be honest. I am just still floored that they actually put Matz in the bullpen, because we talked about this offseason that like holding on to Matz kind of makes sense because you get the flexibility there where it's like, hey, if a couple of injuries happen, you do have a veteran waiting in the wings. Or if the young arms aren't pitching well, you could go to Matz. And again, Matz is injury prone. We get that. But I'd much rather have Matz be in that role than to put Libby in that role. Like Matz is a veteran. He can figure it out. Like
he's done it before.
So he can be the long reliever, pitch out of the bullpen, start sometimes. Like, guess what, man? You got paid, so you fill the role we ask you to.
Yeah.
I didn't like the idea of doing that with Matthew Liberatore again, or doing it to a Michael McGreevy or whatever. So this does give me slight confidence, cautiously optimistic. Now I went from pessimistic to cautiously optimistic that, hey, if Michaelis is bad and McGreevy and Quinn are dealing and it's June, maybe they pull the plug. Maybe. I was not confident of it before. Now I'm like, hey, there's a chance, maybe.
Has anybody had a good spring except for Victor Scott? And let's on the pitching staff. Has literally any starter had a good spring? Maybe Eric Fetty was like,
Michaelis actually.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Honestly, like I don't put any stock in spring numbers, but it's like, dude, Sonny Gray. He's serving up homers left and right. Serving up homers. I know.
Yeah, McGreevy has.
Great. Yeah, that's my other question. What more does McGreevy have to do? But we'll get to that. But like this, I mean, if you want to talk about like there's a chance that this goes south, there's a chance that all 5 starters are terrible in April based on what we're seeing right now. Like Miles Michaelis having the best spring, that makes me a little nervous, right? Matthew Liberatore, we don't know what he is as a starter. It's just like, the highs are so high and the lows are so low. And the problem with the lows being so low is that the lows are 3 2/3 innings. That's the issue, and then the bullpen's overworked. And it's like, man, Andre Palante hasn't looked sharp. Sonny Gray might be hurt. He's pitching through whatever. Eric Fetty, like finished strong with us last year, but I don't think he's looked particularly awesome either. So it's just like, I'd be shocked if they throw away Michaelis because they're thinking, golly, like we just got to cover innings, and like, the rotation last year was like a pleasant surprise. There were no injuries for the most part. Like there were a couple small ones, whatever. But like Kyle Gibson did what he was paid to do. Lance Lynn did what he was paid to do. Miles Michaelis at least had a lot of quality starts, and the team was 500 in the games he pitched. Sonny Gray was really good for the first half, and then when they really needed him, he didn't do what they needed in the second half. And Andre Palante was a pleasant surprise, but like, there's a big chance the rotation is not that good again this year. And I think if the rotation sucks, Miles Michaelis is still going to be in it all year. So, that's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, I think so. I agree with you. I'm saying more like I was getting to a point where I was like, man, it could be June. And Michaelis could be bad. And quitting Michael or McGreevy or Padillan, and there's no room in that rotation, which are that and they're not going to make the move. Now I feel like if they feel like they have the depth behind, they'll probably need one more arm. So Libby, like if Libby is like good, and you've got the Matz as a backup, all that, then like maybe they could pull the plug on Michaelis. Not that like they're looking for the first chance to do it now.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
So. Honestly, I think there's a good chance Quinn is making starts for the team by like July. And I think there's a really good chance he and Michaelis are in the rotation together, which would be so
well,
fun.
at some point someone's gonna get hurt. So whether it's Gray, Michaelis, Fetty,
Michaelis doesn't rubber arm
twice.
Michaelis doesn't really
Michaelis has had a significant injury in his career, but he's probably the one you bank on being healthy the most.
2019.
Yeah, I think he had Tommy John, right? Because he missed a full year, but
he missed the pandemic year.
Yeah. So I mean, you could see Michaelis get hurt, but probably not. Definitely Matz. Libby could get hurt. Gray, Fetty, Palante, any of those guys could easily get hurt. Yeah. So yeah. Okay. Well, go ahead on your Michael McGreevy stuff, because I know you do want to talk about that.
I love Michael McGreevy. And I think Michael McGreevy kind of got pigeonholed. The Cardinals drafted him and people were like, oh, it's the Zach Thompson pick again. It's like boring college starter. I think he's better than Zach Thompson.
Which, to be fair, for a while, the numbers were like, dude, like, which again, even minor league stats are not like end all be all, but it was like, man, like, I mean, Mo, remember that winter warm-up, that blogger day when Mo was like, he was pissed about the state of AAA pitching.
Well, I mean, because Graceffo, because you had a stable of arms that like were kind of interesting. You got Graceffo, you got Robersa, you've got McGreevy, and it's like none of them are ready. Really? That's not even his fault.
Well, player development does fall.
Yeah, it kind of is his fault. But like the guys have to take a step themselves.
It's true. It's true.
I get it. Like he kind of just got typecasted, whatever. And like that was when the numbers looked really bad. Like. He was injured. There weren't a lot of innings, right? In 2021, after the draft, he like barely pitched at all. In 2022, the numbers were like fine. In 2023, they were fine. But like last year, they were pretty good. And honestly, they've been pretty good each of these years. The thing is, Michael McGreevy has given the Cardinals, at this point, almost 300 innings at AAA with a 4.24 ERA. And at the major league level, he was great last year. 23 innings, sure, 3 starts, but a 1.96 ERA, basically didn't walk anybody. He's not ever going to get you a ton of strikeouts, but it feels like he gets a lot of ground balls. He's going to be able to limit hard contact. And it's like, I just don't know what else this guy has to do, because I don't think the numbers are going to get that much better at AAA. Like that's who Michael McGreevy is. No matter who he's pitching against, probably he's going to be able to give you like a 4, a 4.2. He's not going to walk people. He's got great control. Maybe get a little better. Like Kareem has mentioned on Birds on the Farm. Go check that out. We've talked about Michael McGreevy's upside. It's like, well, he could add a tick here or there or something like that. Some of his pitch shapes have changed, and maybe that contributed to a more successful season last year. But it's like, this guy is who he is, and he's there, and he's just getting older. He's just, sitting in Memphis, and I'm ready for him to get a chance. I also just feel like he's been next guy up forever now, and it's like, come on, it's time. It's time to give him this opportunity, because I'm sick of watching him sit there. I love Michael McGreevy.
I could be wrong. But I don't necessarily think. I don't think the Cardinals think he has anything left to prove. I think you're right.
I think you're right.
So I don't think it's like, oh, they need to see a sub-2 ERA from
they don't. They don't.
Yeah, it's just that, okay, we do have Michaelis, and we do have Gray and Fetty and Matz and Liberatore. And again, I do think it's like very like, I don't think Libby has a super long leash here. I don't think it's just 2 or 3 starts, but I wouldn't be surprised after like 5 or 6, they're like, let's get Michael McGreevy in there if we need to, knowing that they could, again, not that I would love the idea of this, but they have clearly been more than comfortable going back to the well of, hey, Libby, go to the bullpen. Now come back to the rotation. Go to the bullpen. Go back to the rotation. They could do that whole thing. They do have Gordon Graceffo in AAA right now, who provides another layer of depth behind Quinn Matthews, and they could always send Libby back down. Like Libby could be in the rotation right now, and it's like, hey, he's struggling, but we still want to give a little bit more time for our starter, send him down to AAA. Again, not saying it's an ideal world, but I think that's how they see it more than, oh, like McGreevy didn't earn a spot.
Sure.
And that's the frustrating spot of where the frustrating version of this rotation group that they have right now. It's part of the problem when you have contracts in your rotation rather than a bunch of young arms, where it's like, now it's not just merit based. It's also, well, you can't, like,
we paid this guy.
Yeah. And it's not, you can't send Matz or Michaelis to AAA.
Yeah.
Like, you have to DFA them. And it's like, is that what they want to do this early in the season? When, again, I've been the guy all offseason has been like, I want to see these young arms. But I do think it's like slightly fair to say, well, what if Palante's bad, which we've got signs so far that's like, okay, I'm like not looking great. Gray gets hurt or is bad. And then it's like, okay. And then, like, I don't know what happens to Fetty. And it's like, man, you're running thin on some arms there. So I see that part of it. But yeah, to your point, like, if McGreevy's not up by the end of May, that's a mistake, in my opinion. This guy, you need to see the full slate. You need to see 20 plus starts from this guy this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you need next offseason to have confidence that he belongs in the rotation. I don't think any of us can confidently say right now, even though we like what we've seen so far.
Like, for sure.
Yeah, like, oh, McGreevy's in the 2026 rotation now. It's like, well, he might be based off the fact that he's all you have, but it's like, has he done enough to clearly be the number 4 starter, number 3 starter? It's like, no, we actually need to see sample size from it. Yeah. And so that's been my biggest fear of the Cardinals pitching this year, is that we're going to get to a place where, like, Quinn Matthews got like 9 starts, and like McGreevy got 17, and Graceffo got 4, and Libby got 12. And it's like, well, like, you didn't really learn a lot.
Not enough. Yeah. I mean, it's just really frustrating. It's like, we're here again. Really, this whole song and dance. It's like, I kind of knew it was coming, I guess, you know?
Yeah.
I know he doesn't have anything left to prove, but you're absolutely right. We just need to know what it is at this point, you know, because there have been plenty of instances where you've got a guy that can lock down at AAA, and it's like, well, he gets to the major league level, and it's like, he doesn't have it. I hope that's not McGreevy, but like, the Cardinals have to know. I think the only thing that's telling to me is that the Cardinals didn't go out and sign another starter. I think had they done that, that would have told me they don't trust the young arms.
True.
Last year they could have gone with McGreevy. They could have done it. You know, McGreevy could have been in your rotation because he was fine the year before in AAA. It wasn't amazing, but teams have gone with starters with worse AAA numbers than McGreevy had last year. They theoretically could have done it, and they didn't. Instead, they went out and they signed not 1, not 2, but 3 starting pitchers to cover innings in their rotation.
Yep.
I just worry. You're absolutely right. I worry we get to the end of this year and it's like, well, Miles Michaelis is gone. Eric Fetty's gone. Steven Matz is gone. Matthew Liberatore is a reliever. And Andre Palante struggled. Well, we got to go cover some innings. Here we go. Free agency. Like, that's where I worry. And it's like, oh man, now they're going to bring in 2 more bargain bin starters. And then we can have 5 guys battling for 2 spots. And now here come the high-end prospects, right? Here come the Quinn Matthews, the Tekoa Robies, the Cooper Jerpies, and the Tink Henses of the world. And Michael McGreevy gets lost in the shuffle. Like, that's my biggest fear as a Michael McGreevy truther. So, Lizard King to the moon. I honestly, you know what? Baseball is baseball. There's a chance that we get to the end of April and like the Cardinals are 4-0 on Miles Michaelis bump days. That's crazy. I guess I'm the enemy. I've defended Michaelis sometimes.
No, the enemy just has a seat at your table, Sandy.
Yeah.
Top tier meme from Andrew. When I saw that, I was dying when I saw that. Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's talk. I think it's a good conversation. We got Jackie who's throwing it out there, Cleveland's throwing it out there. We can even do it with Michaelis and stuff, but let's go kind of player by player. How long is, so like for all these guys, let's say it's like, okay, how long of a runway, how long of a rope do they get before the negative performance is just too much? So like for Palante, how long how long will the Cardinals keep him in a rotation before moving to a McGreevy or a Quinn Matthews if Palante is struggling? I don't even want to put like an ERA number on it. It's probably above 5, right? It's like it's fine on the 4s. Yeah. But if he's clearly like, this dude's getting rocked, how long do you stick with Palante?
Dude, I'm looking for something. I've got this. It's like, to me, the comp is Steven Matz 2023. Like, that's the last time I can really remember the Cardinals taking somebody and being like, yeah, you're not starting anymore. Like, you're out of the rotation.
And that was April, or that was May they did that, right?
It was late May. So
okay.
Here it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It was 10 starts. Okay.
Yeah.
It was 10 starts, and pretty much all of those starts had problems. Like, the first start of the year, pitched into the 6th, gave up 4 runs. Fine. Next start, 6 runs in 5 2/3, whatever. Then he had a decent start, another bad start, only went 4 innings, another bad start. Probably his best start of the year in start number 7. And then he was bad again. He was fine, but he only went 4 2/3. And then he got rocked in the 10th start. And at that point, the Cardinals were like, to the bullpen we go. He had an ERA over 5.7. Like, I think the leash for Palante is a little bit shorter than that. And it does depend on who's, knocking on the door, right? If Quinn Matthews hasn't pitched well at AAA, then the leash is long. Yeah. If Michael McGreevy has struggled in AAA, which I don't think is going to be the case, and I hope it's not the case, then the leash is longer. But I do think you're looking at a leash that's like, there's no way he gets less than 5 starts. I think even if Palante is awful, the only scenario in which he gets less than 5 starts is if A, he's hurt, or B, he can't get out of the 3rd multiple times in a row. You'd need to see 3 implosions for them to move on from that quickly, because truly he was your best starter last year. And he's the best chance you've got of a homegrown starter sticking in the rotation right now. And I say this as someone who really likes the young pitching, but he's already done it. He's already given you 4 good months, if there's anybody to bet on sticking in this rotation long-term, maybe Quinn Matthews is a really good prospect,
Yeah, I'd bet on Quinn Matthews, really good prospect.
Palante. But I think Palante is going to stick in this rotation because we've already seen it. You can already say, he did this at the MLB level. Quinn Matthews has done it at AA. Granted, he was awesome at AA. He was better at AA than Andre Palante was at AA, and better at AA than Palante was at the big league level. But Palante did it as an MLB player, and I think that matters. I just think they also they cannot have him suck. I think they will try to let him pitch out of it, maybe 7 starts.
I think Cleveland brings up a good point. That's Matz was making $10 million. So that's part of the reason you get a little bit longer of a leash. I think, to your point though, I think that's a good comp as if it's 10 starts in, they for sure will pull the plug. If McGreevy or Quinn or Graceffo or one of those guys can slip into that spot, or Matz at that point even. But yeah, I'd probably put it more the 6-7 range. If one of those guys is pitching well, right? Where it's if you can go to McGreevy, then you go to McGreevy. And it's if McGreevy struggles and Palante's still struggling, you can always go back to that well. It's not a huge deal because, like you said, he's already been in the big leagues a bunch of different times. You can do that. So I think that's a good comp on that, I think. What do you think is Miles Michaelis's rope?
I don't even know.
I would say it's probably based on the depth, right?
Yeah, I also just think with Michaelis, I said this last year with Lynn and Gibson, and I stand by this. There's only one stat I care about when Miles Michaelis pitches, maybe 2. I care about innings pitched, and I care about team wins. Okay, if the team wins when Miles Michaelis pitches, fine, let him pitch. If the Cardinals are 500 with their 5th starter pitching, that's not bad. He's not the problem if they're doing that. Now, he's the problem if he's only pitching 3 innings a start. But if he leads the team in innings pitched and the Cardinals win enough of those games, fine. Let him be out there. It's whatever. Now, if he's holding off somebody that's dominating at AAA, or if it's the rest of your rotation also sucks and the team's way out of contention, get rid of him. But what I think is going to happen is the Cardinals are going to hang around in the wild card race, maybe even the divisional race for a while at least. You're going to be talking about this team being a few games out or a few games up in June in the wild card race. And it's there's no way they move on from Michaelis if they're winning while he's pitching. Maybe it's a 7 ERA and he's gone, but I just don't think he's going to be that bad.
Well, the other side of it is if they're not contending and they trade away Fetty and they trade away Sonny Gray potentially.
Yeah, you just have to have innings.
Yeah, so there's actually an argument that it's they're good or bad. Michaelis is still here, and which I do think it becomes more likely that if Michaelis is bad but the team is good, that they'll turn the page because it's okay, we can get better.
That's the only way.
But so okay, what's the runway, or how long of a rope does Sonny Gray get this year? I'm just kidding.
as long as he's
some people, that's a real question for some people right now. So I don't know. Okay. Let's talk about Gorman, Walker, and Scott. Sorry, Jackie, we took way too long to get to that. So, what do you think is the runway or the rope for Gorman this year?
I'll do the same thing I did, and I'm going to try to find a comp here. But like the last guy, the Cardinals, let's start with Walker. Let's start with the last time Walker was up, right? Yep. Like last year, like Walker was really bad for 2 months, and the Cardinals were like, it's time to go back down. I think the leash is probably pretty similar, honestly. Like, I don't know if that's
really.
Maybe it's longer. Like, I don't know.
I think it's pretty long for Walker this year,
unless
it's like catastrophically.
That's
bad.
What I mean. Like last year,
because even is bad, but not like I think it's got to be like bad. Like Gorm last year, bad.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. I guess I'm thinking they're too similar last year. Walker was a good bit better than Gorman in the first half, for sure.
Yeah, at least a little bit. But
Gorman also has those hot streaks that make his numbers look better than they are, and Walker doesn't really do that.
Yeah, so that's where I'd say Walker is probably better because it's like Gorm would have like 3 straight games where he hit like 2 home runs and 2 doubles, and it's like, oh my gosh, his WRC plus just jumped up by like 40 points, and then he went like 4 straight weeks where it's like 0 for 4, 0 for 4, 0 for 4, 0 for 4,
catatonic, 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts,
with 4 Ks, or a pop up mixed in there every once in a while too.
We love our pop ups.
Maybe a walk.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think it's long. I do like the Cardinals need Walker to be good. Okay. Like you go back and you look at the top prospect entering the season. It's like, Alvarez, Bobby Witt Jr., Adley Rutschman, Vlad Guerrero Jr., Jordan Walker. Okay. Like Jordan Walker cannot be the only bust in this conversation. Jordan Walker has to be good. The Cardinals need him to be good. He is the best prospect they've developed from a pure talent standpoint, from a pure tools standpoint in a long time.
Yeah.
They cannot as an organization handle him being terrible.
Yeah.
So I just like, he will get a long leash. I'm talking about if it's catastrophic, 2.5 months.
Ooh, 850 OPS or be traded. Okay. It doesn't need to be that high. Okay.
Worm's got a 740 OPS and he's playing passable defense. That's fine.
I mean, I'm sure he's probably joking, but it's like if anyone on this team has an 800 OPS, I'm gonna be like throwing a party, except for Contreras. That's expected.
Nootbaar, I think, should have something near there.
Something near there, but like if it's 800 or better, I'm like, this is a great Nootbaar year. Like it just is. So especially in this hitting culture right now, like 800 OPS is a lot better than it used to be. So
very fair.
Oh boy. Okay. So
what do you think?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that I don't think they think all that. I think they think okay. How do I thread this needle? I think they really like Thomas to JC, but I don't think they view him a light yet that it's like, oh, Gorm's position is on the line. I think Gorm's runway is probably most tied to Alec Burleson. Or it's like, if you want Burleson to play more, then Gorm's probably the odd man out unless you move Newt to center. Because you put Donnie at second and then Burley can DH more. And so I think if they get to a place where like we really want to see more of Alec Burleson and Gorman is not hitting well, I think it could happen. But I think it takes a while. I think it's like midsummer before you even get to that conversation point, because all offseason, which again, the Cardinals usually, I mean, as much as we like say they don't stick to their word, like when stuff like this, they really like to dig their heels in. I mean, who are the 3 names that they've consistently brought up that they want at bats for? Jordan Walker, Lars Nootbaar, and Nolan Gorman. And Brent Donovan. But
I get wanting at bats for Nolan Gorman though, because like he's actually proven that he can be a good hitter. Like I don't know what it was last year. I want to say it was mental. I hope it was. But if you look at his career next to Alec Burleson's career, it's like Nolan Gorman is, let me get this. Nolan Gorman is 24. Nolan Gorman has a career OPS plus of 102. Nolan Gorman already has a season with a 116 OPS plus, finished with an OPS over 800 in 2023.
Yep.
Like those are such encouraging numbers. And he's got 1,000 career at bats. Alec Burleson also has 1,000 career at bats, also is unplayable in the field, and he's 26. And he has a career OPS plus of 95. Like that's a lot worse. When you think about how valuable that guy is as a player, it's recency bias for sure. And like recency bias also includes trajectory. I'm not saying that Nolan Gorman has a better trajectory right now than Alec Burleson, but like he's 2 years younger with better career stats and he's playable in the field. I think that matters.
It does.
I really don't think the Cardinals should be like, I know people want to see Alec Burleson. I don't think the Cardinals should move off Gorman to see more from Alec Burleson. Again, he's 26 years old.
Yep.
Alec Burleson in a lot of systems is a non-prospect.
Well, I don't think he's a non-prospect in systems. That's
no, but like if he was in Baltimore, like I don't think he'd be getting an opportunity right now.
Oh, I get what you mean. I thought,
yeah, not a non-prospect.
Okay, that's a strong system though.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
I'm just saying.
Burleson was a top 100 prospect at one point.
Yeah, he was. But Gorman was a top 40 prospect.
Yeah, so I know I'm agreeing with you that Gorman is definitely like I'm so not on the Alec Burleson ship off Nolan Gorman and give the reins to Alec Burleson bandwagon. Yet, I think you need to give that runway to Gorman, because to your point too, it's like everyone's like, oh, Alec Burleson is such a good hitter. Which again, I think he's got tools, but he had played a little over 100 games in 2023, 88 WRC plus. He played a lot of the games this year, basically a full season, 106 WRC plus. Gorm in a little less than 100 games in his rookie year was 105 WRC plus, like 20 points higher than Alec Burleson. 2023 full season, 118 WRC plus. He was pretty good, and he had some really hot months. 2024, 87 WRC plus, which was basically in line with Alec Burleson 2023. It's 1 point lower. And we're talking about how bad Gorm was. So I think the heights are just too high with Nolan Gorman to give up on right now. And to your point, like Alec Burleson is basically a first base DH. And when you're a first base DH, your bat has to be even better than a second baseman or shortstop or a third baseman.
Yes, it's got to be
valuable, because that is the only way you provide value. Now, we're not trying to act like Nolan Gorman is some really good defender, but when you can play a position and not just be like catastrophically bad at it, you can provide value to a team. When you can only play first base, there's a reason why Alec Burleson was a 0.6 WAR player last year. And he's a pretty darn good hitter, but he's a 0.6 WAR player because you didn't really provide much. Gorman, who was awful last year, was worth 0.3 less WAR. Now, I'm not trying to say the F WAR is the end all be all. It's not the end all be all, but it's because he can play a position that's like that more valuable than first base DH. And so I think it's fine to give Nolan Gorman the runway for a while. I'm not trying to tell you that if it's July 21st and Gorman is awful, that they have to stick with him. But I also don't think you give up on him after a bad April or even a bad May at this point. I think you got to run with it a little bit, see what happens. And because also too, like, I don't think Thomas Ajayci comes up here right now and lights the world on fire. I just don't. I like him. I don't necessarily know he's an everyday player at the big league level right now. And then again, it's not like you can put Burleson at second base. You're putting Donovan there. Burleson's your DH. I can see the world where it happens, but I think Burleson needs to play really well. Gorm needs to play really bad, and the Cardinals can be confident that this is who Gorm is to move to the Burleson direction for now. Kareem brought a good point. Is like, okay, like, if Burleson becomes the regular DH, could then Sajc push Gorman off the roster? I could potentially see it if they think there's value in letting Gorm figure things out in AAA, because then Sajc provides you value against left-handed pitching. So that's something.
I think there's a few problems with that, though. Like, number one, we don't know if Sajc is going to tear it up either. Like, it's just
for sure.
There've been no examples lately of Cardinals prospects coming up and tearing it up. Like, that was a thing in the 2010s. Right now, it is not a thing, first off. Secondly, I don't know if Burley's going to be the everyday DH, because, again, like, he can't hit left-handed pitching, and he's still, and I know you got Baker, so you could platoon him or whatever, but, like, I just think we're still reaching when we're talking about how much offensive potential there is here. Like, he's a 0.4 WAR player in his entire career, according to Baseball Reference. And I know, again, WAR's not the end all be all, and it doesn't rate a DH fairly, but it's just like, I just like, you're not moving on from a former top 40 prospect. The other thing is, like, I really do think Nolan Gorman, I'm not saying he's going to like light the world on fire defensively, but last year was much worse than it was in 2023, where he low-key became like a passable fielder at times. You know what I mean? -3 outs above average in 2023, which, like, not good, but not the end of the world. And at the same time, he was also a really good hitter, which made him a really valuable player in 2023. And a guy that at the end of that season, literally a year ago today, we were like, Nolan Gorman, maybe the best player on the team. Like, Nolan Gorman, let's build the future around him. You know, yeah. I don't know if there's like no scenario. I'm sorry, but like, there's not a scenario where Alec Burleson is that guy, like, at the end of this year, where I'm saying that about Alec Burleson.
For sure.
I mean, he'd have to hit like 35 home runs or something. And it's not going to happen.
Yeah. And I don't think we're trying to hate on Alec Burleson right now.
No,
right now you're trying to have us pit him against the guys who are supposed to be the core. And that's when you when you're putting guys, when you're raising them on a pedestal, you start poking more holes in their game, right? But when you take, Alec Burleson's like a complimentary offensive bat, okay, like that's an encouraging thing. But like Burleson, someone corrected me brought up a point the other day, and I thought it was fair. It's like we talked about how Alec Burleson fell off in the second half big time. He really more so fell off in September when he had a 52 WRC plus. He was a 113 WRC plus in August, 124 in July, 124 in June. But he had 2 league average months, which was March, April, May. He had like 13% above league average in August, and then he was really good in June and July. Really bad September, October. Again, when you're an offensive player, where pretty much only value provide is your bat, you got to maintain a little bit higher levels than that. You can't have that big of a dip.
Yeah,
it's what we talked about Gorman about those dips, where it's like that's pretty frustrating. Those happen more frequently, but again, he's got higher highs and can potentially give you defensive value there. Also, to Jackie's point about Nootbaar, it's like, okay, well, one thing, Lars Nootbaar has put up a 123 WRC plus season and basically a full year in a corner outfield spot while playing good defense. When Burleson's best WRC plus of his career is a 103. And so I think there are levels to this. And Nootbaar's not a star. Could he become a borderline star one day where it's not like Fernando Tatis Jr. or superstars, but could he be like an all-star caliber player?
Yeah.
Yes, I do think Lars Nootbaar could be an all-star caliber player because he's been 23%, 18%, 14% above league average as a hitter. He's been a 2.5, 3.0, 1.7 more player while playing a maximum of 117 games. This guy's talent and he plays defense. That's the craziest thing to me. I kind of get why people want to move on from Gorman and let the Burleson thing. But and I'm not saying Jackie's saying this, but there are people on Twitter who are like, the Cardinals should have traded Lars Nootbaar to get Alec Burleson in the lineup. And when I see that, I want to delete Twitter.
It's annoying.
And it's not because I don't like Alec Burleson, but it's just like, that is just crazy. It's just crazy.
And again, like with Nolan Gorman, I'm not like the leader of the Nolan Gorman hype train or anything, but like he got unlucky last year to some extent too.
Well,
like his weighted on his ex WOBA was 20 points higher than his WOBA.
Yeah.
Right.
Which again, remember we were talking about that with Alec Burleson the year before, where it's like, hey, this guy's actually better than what he produced.
Yeah. But like Burleson made up that gap this year. And like, the other thing is too, like when he's making contact, top 4% in MLB in ex-WOBA on contact.
Yep.
Like that's a great number. That's dark red on his Savant page, barrel rate, 98th percentile, launch angle, sweet spot, right? Like 98th percentile, it's just the strikeouts. And Gorman has had there's
a big just.
But like Gorman has had his strikeouts under control before. Last year, to some extent.
That's fair. It just wasn't historically bad. I guess it's under control.
Exactly. Look, if he could strike out 30% of the time and he could make contact the rest
of the time, he'd be successful.
He'd be a really good hitter. He's been a good hitter before doing that. That's
just, I think when you have a 30% strikeout rate, you will never be able to escape the deep variance he has. And that is a problem if you're going to be a core bat. I think Nolan Gorman in his current state, in my opinion, his like realistic ceiling is a really stinking good complementary bat. Where it's like the highs are so high, but the lows are too low that he cannot be one of your top 3 bats in your lineup.
Yeah.
But he could be a 6-7 guy because it's like this dude can go off for a while.
That he produces too.
But I also think too, like, or one other thing too, is I don't think either of us are like Nolan Gorman's going to be awesome this year.
No.
I think we just get why they're going to give him a little bit more time here.
But like be real with me. If we get to the end of the year and it's like one of the complimentary bats, either Gorman or Burleson, or like whatever other complimentary bat you want to throw in there, I don't really care, had like a 110 WRC plus. I mean, like, do you think it's more likely that it was Gorman or that it was Burleson?
I don't know.
110 is high. 110 is higher than Burleson has been in anything but 2 months in his career.
Well, yeah, but 3 months. But then also too, like if he didn't bomb so hard in September, like a Gorman bad bomb, then he probably was close to a 110 last year.
But Gorman's done it, and Gorman's had like a 150 month before.
Yeah, I don't know. At this point, with how bad Gorman was last year, I'm open-minded about how good or how bad it could be next year. Burleson, I think, is pretty like I don't know. I think he can be. I think he's pretty steady. Like I don't think he's going to be a below league average hitter. He could be a 20% above, but that's high. That's high.
I don't think he's going to be 20% above. I just don't see where the production's coming from.
I'm talking about like a 90th percentile outcome, but
Sure.
it's like I could see in the 50th. He's a 108, 110 guy.
I could see him very like being like a 104, like
potentially.
And I think if that's the case, like I just don't see how you could talk about trading Nootbaar or Gorman.
Well, you're also probably this actually really helps him because he was a 123 on the season against right-handed pitching last year.
Yeah,
you're probably going to see Burleson. They forced the issue of Burleson playing against lefties a lot last year.
Yeah, they won't
basically only see him playing against righties. So actually, you could see that number inflated quite a bit because of that too.
That helps
because you're playing to his strength. So, and then Samuel's point, they're all placeholders for JJ anyways. So
nice.
We'll get to him at some point. So, anyways, this is a really fun episode today. We've gotten there. We've got a lot to talk. We didn't even talk about opening day at all. So I don't know if we'll go live before opening day. We might go live after opening day. We'll have to talk about our schedule this week. But yeah, Andrew and I will be there. I know Sandy's down in Texas, so he won't be able to make it. But I'm sure you'll be watching. You'll be tuning in.
Oh, yeah. Maybe I'll have an underdog little pick'em for the game.
Yeah. What do we feel? I mean, maybe the chat can let us know too, or in the YouTube comments, you guys want this. How would we feel about potentially like? I'd be having to do it on the car ride home. I'm riding with my dad, so it might work to like because we go to opening day every year. It's fun. I might be able to do it from like the passenger seat, but we could do a reaction pod to opening day. So you guys just have to bear with me being in a car the whole time. But if we did immediately after, unless we wait till the evening. So let us know if you guys are potentially interested. Would you guys rather hear us do like a preview of opening day, or would you rather have us go live and react to opening day? Maybe we do both. I don't know. Probably not. But you never know. But yeah, if you guys have one preference over the other, let us know. So, anyways, good episode today. Super fun talking about the Sandy. Mostly intrigued by what the Cardinals did with their open day roster, but there were some things I'm like, what? Okay. But yeah, baseball's back. The Cubs are in last place. And hopefully Sonny Gray figures things out by Thursday so the Cardinals don't join them there. But it's been fun. I'm really excited for the season to start. It's so I can't even believe it's here. So
yeah, it's a quick off season, honestly.
Yeah, it dragged on in some ways, but it mostly snuck up on us. So anyway, we'll be back this week at some point. I don't know if it'll be before opening day or in a reaction opening day. Appreciate you all tuning in as always. Again, we'll have a giveaway this week, so stay on the lookout for that. And I might throw a second one to the mix. I'll send a chat to you or I'll tell you after the pod and see what you think about it. Send something to Andrew. Anyways, appreciate you all tuning in. Like the stream, helps us out a ton. Comment, let us know your thoughts. And again, subscribe if this is your first time or you've been listening and aren't subscribed already. Again, help the channel out a ton. Can't wait for opening day this Thursday. Go Cardinals.
Thanks, Mo.